that's coming out ahead of the cell, and then this is the zone where we potentially have that rotation and perhaps a tornado that could form and touch down. Tracking it off toward the east-southeast again around Harvard at 5:04, Boxborough by 5:12. This will be into your community. West Acton by 5:16 and South Acton by 5:18. So all towns that are impacted by this storm. And I mentioned even if there is not a tornado, it's not a good time to be outside. Between all the lightning, some of our spotters have been coming in with reports of numerous lightning strikes, of big hail, very gusty winds, some trees down. So a good time to just stay indoors at that safe spot. Now, when there is a tornado warning, well, it's likely based upon the radar signature or an actual sighting. In this case, so far, it's based off of radar signature. The radar is looking at the storm. There is rotation. Certainly, it is a rotating thunderstorm, and it may tighten up to the point of producing a tornado. So take immediate precaution, seek shelter. If you're listening to me, you're in those towns, stop listening to me, just go down to the basement. Just wait for this storm to pass. That's the safe spot you want to be in. And again, here's a look at that particular storm. The possible rotation point, moving very close to Harvard at this point. So you want to be in your safe spot as it moves off to the east at about 30 miles per hour. More radar scans, and we're looking at generally the same setup here. Again, I mentioned earlier, this is where the wind is coming into the storm, and then you've got strong winds that come down on the backside of it. When they get close enough together, we have a tight rotation. That's where you can produce that potential tornado. Now, we do have hail that came down around the Leominster area. This is a look at our hail tracker. It's another radar product, looks into the storm, and it estimates how big those hailstones are. In this case, we're talking golf ball size, perhaps even a little bit bigger. So that can leave dents in cars. Not a good time to be outdoors. That can cause a lot of pain or injury to anyone who may get hit by one of those hailstones. And this will probably continue as the storm continues to move off toward the east, though it should maintain its hail and certainly some very heavy rainfall to go with those hailstones. So a dangerous time for a lot of folks out here. And we've got a new warning that's just coming in here. Some updates. Still no confirmation. Our executive weather producer, Terry, bringing this in. Basically, it's still a radar indication. There's certainly a rotating thunderstorm. No one has actually seen with their eyes a tornado on the ground yet. Nevertheless, you want to treat these situations very, very carefully, as it's a dangerous time. We don't get too many of these warnings during any given summertime here in New England. We also have a severe thunderstorm warning for the overall cell. So there's a big thunderstorm in here producing a lot of wind and rain. The tornado potential area is a smaller area. Of course, a tornado covers less ground than an overall thunderstorm, and that's why that warning's a bit different size. That tornado warning goes until 5:30 local time. Severe thunderstorm warning goes until 5 o'clock local time. And we'll be tracking these as they do change or update throughout the evening. And I should mention as well, underneath this, you've got a flash flood warning that's also in effect. So putting down a lot of rain, especially on the streets. You get ponding on the roads, very low visibility, and that can too create a dangerous situation. Looking at that radar behind it, again, if you have storm number 1 come through and you want to go look outside after it passes, keep in mind there's another one right on its heels here. And this too is showing a nice broad kidney bean kind of shape. So this is likely also producing a lot of damaging winds, some heavy rain, lightning, and it's going to be moving almost exactly the same path as storm number 1. So you've got 2 lined up back to back. These are really the only 2 storms that we're really tracking in our viewing area. So the same folks all under the gun for potentially damaging weather. A little closer look now. Looks like Shirley right underneath that area where we do have some of that rotation estimated on radar. If you are anywhere in the path of these storms, you want to seek that safe spot in your house, lowest level, basement, away from windows. If you don't have a basement, usually an interior room like a bathroom has the strongest walls, and so that is the best place to go until these storms work their way out of the region. Also, a lot of heavy rain. This is moving off toward the Littleton area in about 15 to 20 minutes. A tornado safety, if you are inside of a home, which I'm assuming that likely you are if you're watching at the moment, it's at lowest level, away from the windows, doors, outside walls. Don't want to go near any of that. And this is a myth. Don't open the windows. That used to be a myth that would circulate around years past. It doesn't help anything. It's not a good idea. You don't want to open up the windows. It won't even out the pressure or anything like that if a tornado is coming through. If you're outside and you know someone who is outdoors, you want to get to a vehicle or a low, flat location under an overpass. Watch out for any flying debris. Even if we don't have a confirmed tornado, we know there's a lot of strong wind in this thunderstorm, and so that's blowing all sorts of things around that can become projectiles and can become very dangerous as well. Another look at our live radar. The sweep coming in, and the storm is moving generally off toward the east, maybe a little bit of a southerly element to that. So around Acton and Littleton, this is moving in your direction. It's a good time to get to that safe spot. You have a little bit of lead time on this, under that tornado warning. Harvard, just a few minutes after 5 o'clock. This is into your town, a Boxborough area by 5:16, Concord by 5:33. So getting closer and closer in toward Metro West and Boston areas, and into Bedford by 5:39. So if this can hold together, continue to move off toward the east, it will come very close to the city of Boston as well, certainly the northern suburbs on the north side of Boston. So here's the overall look across. We've got scattered storm activity. There are a few more that are coming now into Berkshire County and Hampden County, and also a couple popping up in the Litchfield Hills of Connecticut. These don't appear to be nearly as dangerous as what we're seeing with that one cell that's moving over toward the Acton area. That's the one that's been holding together. It has a history of wind damage, lots of trees down. You go back toward western Franklin County and the Berkshires. Many reports there causing all sorts of issues. Coleraine, a town that's been hit many times the last couple of weeks. So this has been tracking right along the New Hampshire-Massachusetts border and now moving a little farther to the south. It looks like it'll pass just south of Lowell and shoot the gap between Lowell and Boston before it makes its way over toward the Atlantic Ocean. So for the second time in a week, we've got a tornado warning in effect. It was New Hampshire last week. Now we're talking about Massachusetts. And I mentioned earlier, you've got a follow-up storm to this one with a tornado warning on it. That's the one with all of that lightning, and then another one right over Athol. That too could have some gusty winds, create some issues for you. And so if you head outside, know that there is another one coming on the heels of storm number 1 that is blasting on through. To all these lightning strikes here, you'll probably hear it coming before you even see it coming. Nevertheless, if you're under that warning, if we've mentioned your town, you want to get to that safe spot and make sure you're in a place where you can safely ride out the storm until it passes across the area. In terms of lightning strikes, we can query that, take a look at the storm, put a box around it, and see how many strikes are coming on down. 594 in the last 15 minutes. So some vivid lightning. I'm sure the skies are very dark. And in terms of a possible tornado, we still haven't had visual confirmation of that. So if we're waiting for any updates, if anyone does see this, if you are in a safe spot, if you're in a basement and you can let us know you still have cell service, send it on in. I'm at Eric Fisher or at Terry WBZ. Send in any pictures, but only if you are in a very safe spot. Please do not go outside and take pictures for the sake of us if you are in any kind of danger or if this storm is close to your town. You're under the warning. You should be in that safe spot and nowhere else. In terms of a track of all of this, it has moved just north of Athol, it went through Leominster, and now drawing a little bit closer toward the Burlington area as it continues to move off toward the east-southeast. The storm behind it is actually looking a little more organized as well, so I think you're going to get a pretty good blast from storm number 2 as you did from storm number 1. There is the notch. Whenever we see a little appendage here like this, it's a bit of a hook echo that we're seeing out there for this evening. And so that is a sure sign. This is why we came on a little while ago. It looked like there is certainly a possibility that this could wrap up and produce a tornado very quickly. At the very least, in this little area where you've got strong updraft winds and strong downdraft winds, when you've got a supercell like this, it can produce very large hail. Throw the raindrops way up into a storm, freeze them, hold those stones up into the cloud until they're very heavy, and then they finally drop when the wind can't hold them up there any longer. And so that's why we've seen some very large hail reports. Possible tornado warning. This looks to be right over the Harvard area now, or just toward the north side of the main center of the city, but it's also moving very close to 495. Now there's more or fewer traffic out there than you would expect in a normal week, considering it is July and a lot of people on vacation. I'm sure there are still plenty of cars out there on the interstate. So if you know anyone who is traveling on 495 in this particular stretch, you know they're in the car, give them a call. Tell them they might want to pull over to the side of the road and wait for the storm to clear the interstate before it moves through. Again, if there's not a tornado, there's still very heavy rainfall. There's still hail likely coming down, and that will pose a very serious threat to anyone who is traveling in the path of it. So it looks just on the north side of Harvard. This is where our rotation is going to be found in the storm. If it does produce a tornado, which we haven't had confirmation of yet, this is the spot it would be in. It's going to move just toward the south side of Littleton, and then it will cross 495 as it moves off toward the east. So a dangerous situation. There's a new scan. You see our little hook and appendage that's sticking down here toward the Harvard area. This is where we'd likely find some of the biggest hail and the heaviest rainfall. And just off to the south of Littleton and right near 495. And keep in mind the radar is a few minutes behind real time. So this is likely right over the interstate as we speak or very close to it as it continues to track. Now, if we broaden out just a little bit, you see Stowe. You should be in the clear of this one. Should pass just off to your north, but farther to the east toward Acton, this one is headed right for you. So certainly a time you want to get down to your basement, get down to an interior room and seek shelter until you hear the storm pass work through your town, and then you can pop back out and see how things have panned out. And hopefully we do not see a tornado actually touch down. Still waiting to hear if there is any visual confirmation of that. Now, storm number 2, an update on this one. Around the Gardner area and reaching farther off toward the west, we've got some heavy rainfall. We've got likely some hail, very gusty winds. You're probably just cleaning up from the first storm that worked its way through. And so this is one that we'll also have to watch for any folks who are farther off toward the east. We have some updates. We have Jonathan, Lisa, who are in the studio, and Paul, I believe, this evening, taking a look at what's going on. Do you have any updates here, guys?
No, we just wanted to touch base with you real quick, Eric, while you're talking about this situation. You're saying how fast is this storm moving, though, as it's making its way across our area?
This storm is moving about 30 miles per hour off toward the east. So it's not exactly screaming through like we saw in Boston on July 3rd, which is moving 50 to 60 miles per hour, but fast enough where we'll be on you in a pretty much of a big hurry. So tracking it out there, Acton by 5:17, Carlisle by 5:25, the Billerica area by 5:34, and Burlington by 5:41. And you notice all the way out in the eastern end of that cone, Woburn is also impacted by this particular storm if it can hold together. Terry, have you had any more storm reports on hail size or any possible confirmation?
No, sadly no.
No confirmation yet. So summertime, a lot of folks not around, not home. If you do see anything, and again, you're in a safe spot, certainly let us know what you're seeing there on the ground, either on Twitter or email. You can find us or call into the station. We'd like to hear so that we can pass it along for everybody. Jonathan and Paula and Lisa, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no
going on out here this evening. What do you have for us?
We'll get back to you in just a second, Eric. We have somebody on the phone with us this evening.
Yeah, to enhance what you're talking about, we want to bring in Glenn Field, who is with Skywarn. And Glenn, tell us what you're seeing in this area.
Yeah, hi. Actually, we're the National Weather Service in Taunton. We are monitoring this. We issued a tornado warning on this storm. It still has a very impressive signature in the reflectivity, which is sometimes indicative of a tornado, not always. And we do not have any confirmation at this point. We have had a history of trees downed along the entire path of this storm, and we have dime-size hail earlier. So we're watching it.